Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good midday, like for us in Europe. I'm Sylvie Watts. I'm going to be your moderator. I'm an agronomist and resilience advisor in the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And this is an event which is co-led by us together with the Climate and Environment Charter for Humanitarian Organization. We are welcoming you to this event, which is really aiming at listening to women, indigenous women leaders leading climate and food action in the context of the multiple crises that we face, but especially in the climate crisis that we face. And this is really a virtual opportunity, a virtual conversation to inform the Humanitarian Network and Partnership Week conference, which is happening this week and next week. This week it's virtual events. Next week it's going to be hybrid events. And we're really having the chance and the honor to have today with us 4 very important speakers who are going to ground us in the reality of what they are facing and what they are doing and what are the key messages and the recommendation that would like us to take forward. So we have only 1 hour, which is a very short time. At the same time, it should be sufficient to hear these main messages, to hear these voices of our amazing leaders, really putting a local knowledge, local action at the center of the solution for the interconnected climate and food crisis that we face today. We will have this 1 hour, we will have the speakers, we'll have a setting a scene speakers first from Nishani with us. And then we will have our 4 panelists and they will raise a few questions, same questions to all of them. And then we hopefully will have 5 to 10 minutes to answer some of the questions from the floor, if you have any. We are encouraging you to put the questions in the chat so we can pick this up and relay this to our speakers. And that should help us to focus, and it's better than using the Q&A handle. We are recording this session because it's important to have this available for further informing the takeaway and the recommendation that we are shaping during this hour together. And with this, I would like to immediately ask Nishani Dayamaha, who is the coordinator of the Climate and Environmental Charter Secretariat, who's been helping us to co-lead, shape this event now today. We would like her to help us set the scene on this very important charter for shaping the way forward, especially on the environmental and climate dimension of the humanitarian action, and how this is important also in the context of the conversation we have now together. Nishani, please welcome, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you here with us, ready to listen to you. Thank you, my dear.
Thanks, Sylvie. It's such a pleasure to co-host this event with FAO to highlight voices from the front lines, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from our amazing speakers. And I'm here today with my co-coordinator, Natasha Westheimer, on this call from the Charter Secretariat as well. Just maybe to set the scene as such, as mentioned by Sylvie, as humanitarians, we are no stranger to risks, shocks, and crises. However, our world is rapidly changing, and climate and environment crises are becoming more and more concerning for the communities we work with and for ourselves, of course. We are already seeing how severe climate impacts such as droughts, heat waves, floods, cyclones are leading to desertification, water scarcity, exacerbating food insecurity and malnutrition, leading also to health impacts. We know that these crises are becoming harder and harder to separate from other driving factors such as poverty, inequality, economic and debt crises, weak or failed governance, conflict, and fragility. And these are places where we work in mostly as humanitarian actors. We also know that everyone is affected, but not everyone is affected equally. Those who have contributed least to the crisis are hit hardest and are often also excluded from climate and environment action, including sometimes humanitarian action. That's why the Climate and Environment Charter for Humanitarian Organizations, through its 7 commitments, calls on the humanitarian sector to step up our response and help people adapt to the impacts of climate and environment crises. We are asked to be more environmentally sustainable in our response and to do no harm and to do more good in the context we work in. And by signing the charter, organizations commit to developing targets to these commitments. And we as a Charter Secretariat are here to support signatories to step up their action. And in order to step up, we really need to take some of the work we've been doing around the grand bargain on localization and accountability to affected communities, for example, to another level. And we need to do this fast. Time is of the essence. The commitment number 3 of the Charter is about embracing the leadership of local actors and communities. For this to become a reality, the humanitarian sector needs to systematically include local and community voices for decision making from the very start of our design and planning, right up to the programming and monitoring, evaluation and learning. This loop back into that cycle. It cannot be tokenistic. There's already a lot of action taking place on the ground, led by communities for communities. And we will hear more of this from our amazing speakers. And I'm not going to go into too much of this, but we as humanitarian actors need to better understand and integrate these locally led and locally adapted solutions. It's not like we're not doing it, but the humanitarian sector is relatively good at tapping into displaced and refugee communities, finding out what their needs are and better understanding their vulnerabilities and risks they face. And to use this in programming, we do this with displaced and refugee communities. However, what we're not good at is tapping into the broader ecosystem of the knowledge and the locations of where displaced and refugee communities are moving to. Refugee and displaced communities are moving to areas and territories that they nor we as humanitarian actors are always familiar with. While we've got better at working with host communities, we need to go beyond just supporting these communities to host people who are displaced. We need to look at how indigenous, local, and host community knowledge and solutions can be better integrated into humanitarian action. It also is to remind us that local capacities and resources are already available, that not everything needs to be imported, nor do we have to reinvent the wheel. For example, indigenous and local communities have been using ancient weather-resistant seeds, crop diversification, and irrigation methods for thousands of years. They have been using early warning signs from natural world they live to save lives. We just will need to change our ways of working, not just to accommodate, but to incorporate and mainstream these capacities. And that is at least one way to ensure that the very communities we are working to support are further strengthened to face increasing impacts of climate and environment crises that we're going to face now and in the future. So what is our role as humanitarian actors and what can we do better? How and what can we contribute to? How can we center these existing community and indigenous resources, knowledge and capacities, and bring in our expertise and available technology? And I'm looking really forward to hearing from our amazing speakers today on recommendations for us moving forward. So over to you, Sylvie, and looking forward to hearing from you all. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Nishani. This is very clear, a very, very good, a very clear point, and thank you for really leading the charge with this charter. It's climate and environment. Environment is also understood as nature and biodiversity. These are the foundation of lives, foundation of livelihoods, but also the foundation of agriculture and of food systems, which we know very well, and especially the leading indigenous people know that better than anyone else. They are the symbol, they are the icon of the excellence of resilience and founded in natural system. So with this, and thank you, Sanda, you put it in the chat, the reference to the charter. So any of you participants can have reference and look and visit the charter. It is in several languages, and there's some details on the priority and the various links and information on the charter to make it implementation from principle to implementation. So it's very, very useful link. And it took a very broad consultative process to shape this together. And that's why now we really want to use it to the maximum, including on this principle 3 on local leadership. So with this, I would like to introduce our 4 panelists, or estimated, very, very proud that we have these guests with us, and we're going to spotlight each of them. And we're going to first welcome Dorcas Naishorua, which is also called Miss Climate Kenya. So Dorcas, maybe if you can show your video and we can wave at you. Dorcas, welcome. Dorcas is a leader from the Maasai community, is a land community-based organization. She's a passionate climate activist and indigenous and women's rights leader, and working with her community in Kenya for promoting resilience and sustainable food system. Welcome, Dorcas, and we will listen to you. Next, we have Marilyn, who is, we're traveling back from Kenya to the Philippines. We have Marilyn Rasmil, who is from the Marsh areas in Kanibayalan clan in the indigenous political structure that we have in the Philippines. And she is a former chair and now auditor of the indigenous political organization, and especially from the certificate of ancestral domain title KDT 090 from that local area. And we will also listen to her and the wisdom and the leadership that she is demonstrating. Welcome, Marilyn. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Yes, ma'am.
Then we will have also Tarsila Rivera-Zea, who is from Peru. Tarsila, maybe if you want to show your video 1 minute. Welcome, Tarsila, early for you in Peru. Tarsila is a leading actor and executive president of the International Indigenous Women's Forum, and from the Quechua indigenous leader from Peru, founding presidents of the Chirapach Center of Indigenous Culture of Peru, and coordinator of the Continental Network of Indigenous Women of the Americas. We had the chance to work already with Tarsila in many of the conferences of climate change, where each time she's putting forward the leading role of women empowerment, and also a deep knowledge of agriculture livelihoods and the food system that really her communities are leading. Tarsila, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us. And then the 4th speakers we have with us, the 4th panelist is Binal. Binal Nepram is from Manipur in India. Welcome, Binal. We have another impressive leader. because Binal is the founder director of the Global Alliance of Indigenous People, Gender and Justice and Peace. So Binal is also adding the peace dimension to the climate crisis that we are facing. She used to be the senior advisor of the indigenous issues in the US Institute of Peace. And now she's the global leader and working to find innovative indigenous solution to reduce conflict and climate crisis, and organized also a first ever global summit on indigenous peace building, bringing more than 100 leaders, indigenous leaders, elders, women, and youth together from different countries. So, Binal, welcome to our talk today, and very nice to have you also. So, with this short introduction, you will also find it in the chat. I would like to ask the four of you the same questions, but they're going to be 3 questions grouped in 2 because of the sake of time. The first question, and I'm going to go first to Marilyn. The first question is, tell us about your people and your location briefly, and the climate change that you are facing, and the type of shocks and stresses that really the climate change is creating for you and your community, conflict also, if there is any. What is that you're experiencing in your area? What has been changing over time? And what are the solutions that you are implementing so that people, the audience, can really understand from your voice the realities that you are living, the action that you are taking, that are really connecting both the food and climate action. So, Marilyn, thank you. If you
Yes,
can
ma'am.
take us through your
Okay.
wisdom. Thank you.
By the way, I'm Marilyn Trasmil, a women representative of Kanimbaylan sector. Kanimbaylan is just one sector of Cadiz 090, which consists of 9, which also located in the municipality of Loreto, Agusan del Sur. We live harmoniously in our environment we call Danao, or in spite of changes of the environment, it is not only on lake itself, but it's include the ecosystem on that area, which nowadays was commonly known as Agusan Mars Wildlife Sanctuary after the recognition of national and international convention. And our ancestor, ma'am, took care of our nature. There are stories of spirit that hold on that resources found in the surroundings, which beyond understanding of others. But for us, we gain that and hold on that practices passed down to the generation, because that these practices have been handed down from generation to generation since long ago. We have two season in our area. The flooding season. During the flooding season, we prepared our floating houses, because we live in a floating houses, by raising the roofs and prepare for that flood. That the roofs connect the houses to a tree. In this way, when the water rises, our floating houses also rise with it, preventing for the total damage. Then on dry season, during the dry season after the flood recede in April, we cultivate the land along the lakeside and planted crops like corn and others, and must be harvested in the month of November, I think, because there is a big chance that that month would be a start of flooding or rainy season. On other side also, even though we have no rain in our place, but there's a heavy rainfall in the riverside head. waters or watershed in the upstream, we also experiencing the flood because we are in low-lying areas. The impact of climate change on the area is very significant in the past years. In the past, with our grandparents, when flooding occurred, the water rise gradually, but now it is nowadays the flood waters come rushing forcefully, and moreover, once a large and a lake that has been significantly shrunk, almost half of our area has turned into land. The years due to the water carried by the soil carried by the water. So that is our situation here in Agusan Mars. But our solution on that, our little solution is that because of the changes of our area, in order to sustain our daily needs of our family, we have two types of livelihood: fishing and farming. Fishing is the main source of income which we can do throughout the entire year. A big portion of the fish catch will be sold or bartered in order to overcome other basic needs, including sending our children to school. While farming also, during dry season, the vast body of the water that was a major source of income through fishing has decreased due to siltation. This led us to start planting crops during dry season. That's how we go or deal with the changes on our area, because we believe that if we are always asking, recollecting why is it that our area changes this much, we can do nothing. Uh, that's what we go on that position that we have today. Go into what we have today. On other way, I, together with my colleague as IP, Indigenous People Women, we organize ourselves into association and advocate to care our environment. We don't want to see in the future that the forest was totally disappearing because of human activities. What we did, we placed economic value in biodiversity conservation by making or processing indigenous fruits into jam, vinegar, and create and cookies and other crops like water hyacinth with turning into slippers and baskets. We do this for the for the people not to cut trees anymore, because we are so devastating. It's devastating for us to see that the forest was disappearing now. So we tried to convince other women to go with us. So does I miss anything, ma'am?
Oh, this is excellent, Marilyn. And that is really summarizing, and I think I'll add something you've also explained to us, how your people and your communities are living in total harmony with the ecosystem, the wetland ecosystem, and the forest, and how trees are fundamental in the protection of this changing of weather, because to reduce the speed of water flooding coming in, protection from the storm, and so on. And now you're really intimately living and protecting the ecosystem and the forest for keeping your livelihoods, which is both on farming and fishing. I think you've explained this very well. Thank you, Marie. This is great. Let me pass the floor now to Tarsila. Tarsila, if you can tell us also from your leading experience with your communities, especially in the Andes, which is the opposite from the marshland. It is a mountain ecosystem, a high mountain, high altitude, telling us about the main climate shocks and stresses and food insecurity issues that you're facing, and the main action that you are taking, so that we can hear from you and understand the leadership that you are taking. Tassila, over to you.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you to people who are listening us. Principally, I want to share with you that for us is very important to be considered too as a human being. For that, for us, the human rights is the basic condition to live in our territories with dignity. In this situation, as you know, in South America, we are coming from 10,000 how do you say, heritage of civilization, where our ancestors developed very good the relationship with nature, living in the context, maybe in the forest or on the Andes or in the mountains. In this condition, they develop how we can make a reciprocity with Mother Nature using and taking the food, the products of the nature, and try not to exploit it, because we always think to preserve for future generations. But what is happening? Is happening in this context, we have many dangerous situation, because in the Andes, for example, many concession for minerals, how do you say, the mono agriculture is okay. And in the Amazon, the problem is what is happening with oil exploitation, the traffickants of narco-traffickants, traffickants of land or resources or wood. In this case, we, indigenous women and organizations, always are trying to resist and to develop how we can do the better life for us. The last is how is impacting the climate change, because maybe we can say we don't want to narco-traffickants here, we don't want to give our land to others, but when climate change arrives, we are in very bad conditions. When you think in South America, in the region, you have the forest, everybody are talking about the marvelous forest, but we need to think what is happening with the people who lives there historically, and how when the extreme weather arrive, we suffer all the disequilibrium of the ecosystem. In the Andes is the same. In the Andes, we principally produce food for the city, because we are coming from culture of agriculture. And the ecosystems suffer very extreme weather, and we are suffering because what is happening with the seed for next campaign, agricultural campaign. Or the medicine women are very sad because the medicine plants no the same possibility if the extreme weather, no? That's why we use our proper efforts, our proper imagination to adapt to this situation. We heritage knowledge and indigenous knowledge in high mountains, where we try to use what we have, but in the past we used to make exchange of products to have, for example, meat, and we maybe produce some beans, but now it's very difficult because the presence of foreigners or trying to promote the market. In this case, I think it's necessary to see and to know the context and to listen to local people, how we can do better looking for a solution to this kind of problems. When our sister talk about humanitarian, I always was thinking what is happening in the south of Peru is Puno. Each year we have, like in Swiss, and but what is happening? No prevention for the government or for the state. And each year, each winter, died camelidos or died children because the weather is extreme and they are not prepared for that extreme. That's why it's necessary to listen to local people and try to obtain solution with proper knowledge, because they know the ecosystems and they know how to look for solution. In our case, our people from the community, they are observing, like in the past, observing why this seed is more resistant to extreme weather. They are looking, observing, and trying to select this kind of this seed is better for extreme weather, or how is changing the ecosystem with a climate is more warm than usually, and what is happening with the other how do you say, seres vivos, no, like insects.
Yes.
No, for example, the history of a woman said, why this insect don't eat the violet color of flower? What's the flower? Is the flower of the one kind of potatoes, but they like very much the white flower. What kind of potatoes? And they said, we need to put the violet color because the insect don't want to eat that. As you know, our people know how to do to extreme situations, but we need the support from outside in emergencies, taking account the context, because every ecosystem is different and they know how to answer to this situation. And
Exactly.
please recommend to our governments, to our states, to pay attention to this situation and not send only fabric or industrial food that the community don't want to use. We need to invest in the people, in development capacities, and to invest in strengthen the traditional knowledge as a solutions. Thank you.
Tassila, excellent. Investing in traditional local food instead of importing ultra-processed food, and especially in the humanitarian situation, it's fundamental. Point very well taken. Now, quickly moving to you, Binal. If you can share with us your experience, your knowledge of what are your communities experiencing in terms of climate shocks and stresses and also related conflicts. What are the leading actions you are taking in 5 minutes? I know we're very short of time, but your experience is very precious. Over to you, Binal.
Yes, thank you, Sylvie, and fellow panelists, and all the audience. I greet to you in my indigenous language, Manipuri, Mayam Butaramna Okchari. I pay my obeisance to each and every one of you who's here with us today at this very critical time. For me, in the next 4 minutes, I'll just share the context of where I come from and what is happening there, and most importantly, solutions. First, I want to honor my mother. My mother is nearly 90, but between 7 a.m. to 11 a.m., she goes to her vegetable garden every day. The day she doesn't go, she feels she's not happy. She is one of the 500 million. Her little vegetable garden is one of the 500 million small farms which indigenous people and frontline communities work to produce 80% of the global food. 80%. So this is the reality and the importance of how we have to understand and respect indigenous communities, frontline communities, who are at the moment, they are mostly affected by conflict and climate crisis right now. 107 conflicts in the world today, and more than 80% of these conflicts are happening in biodiversity hotspots where indigenous people live. Indigenous people are 476 million, living in 90 countries and territories. Yet we have been left out in decision-making processes, whether it's climate, conflict, agriculture, or other forms of protecting people and the planet. So my sharing today, the next few minutes is going to be 2 minutes, is Manipur, where I come from, has been one of the most beautiful biodiversity hotspots in the world. We are a part of the Himalayan ranges, and we have many wetlands and other more than 1,200 medicinal plants. We produce very rich variety of rice, an absolutely biodiversity hotspot. Yet this particular region has been under conflict for the last 70 years. One of Asia's longest running conflicts is in my region. It has destroyed our ecosystem. It has destroyed our agriculture. It has destroyed our forest with poppy plantation, which is now being put, and palm oil plantation for the greed of a few. As a result, we have seen devastation, humanitarian devastation in the land where I am. At the moment, as we speak, more than hundreds of thousands of people are displaced, currently living in more than 300 relief camps all across Manipur and in the surrounding region. More than $30 million of agricultural produce destroyed in this conflict. Inflation has risen 9% because of this conflict in a place which was self-sufficient in food. So this is, and then and not only that, there's rising weather patterns, floods, droughts, deforestation resulting in strong climatic changes. So these are, some of the things that we are seeing in our communities. And as a result, this is also creating pressure points on communities. So there is inter-ethnic conflict. There is conflict resulting in this climate and conflict crisis. But today, in the next 1 minute that I have left, I will just share you that not everything in my region is a story of pain. This, we are commemorating Humanitarian Networks and Partnership Week. I also wish to tell that only 0.2% of humanitarian aid, which is given to the world, reach survivors' families. Families in frontline communities, only 0.2%. We got to shift that to enable us. And the reason why you need to shift are as follows. Number one, in my region in Manipur, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have what is called Manipuri Pupuyas. We have a treatise on the forest called Umanglon. We have indigenous texts which talks about how to protect our climate and our nature. Manipur has more than 413 sacred groves and sacred sites, which are climate stabilizers, biodiversity hotspots, where it has been stabilizing our climate. Let us learn how to preserve that, number one. Number two, we have indigenous agroforestry in Manipur. In Nagaland, we have water conservation done by the Chakisang Naga farmers, where they manage water resources while improving soil health. In Manipur, we also have got bamboo forest, which help in not only our food, fiber, but also in building houses, in handicrafts and sustainable forms of living. We are all women in this panel here, all indigenous women, and I'm so proud of all our panelists today. Indigenous women hold the key, like my mother, like Tarsila. Indigenous women hold the key to protect, our prevent conflict and climate. That is very important. Women-led organic farming, and currently, at the moment, in Manipur, we're experimenting with what is called peace gardens, which are gardens where food is grown near relief camps, where near 60,000 people are displaced. We are working with hundreds of thousands of displaced communities to grow food, potatoes, coriander, beans, pumpkins. And just now, before the meeting started, I got photographs from Manipur in several of these camps. And this is for us hope. And most important is to realize that in Manipur, we have climate resilient rice varieties. For example, we have a black rice, we have got deep water rice, which are resilient. And then we have got climate resilient crops, which withstand heat, cold, and floods. For example, we love what is called yongchak, which is beans, which is grown in the trees, which are extremely climate resilient, and this kind of thing. So I think we have in us. And then in Arunachal Pradesh, we have community indigenous seed banks. We're also starting in Manipur, bamboo-based climate adaptation in Mizoram and Manipur. So these are some of the really important innovative indigenous solutions towards addressing the issue of climate, food security, ensuring resilient agriculture that works for all. And if we do that, if we're able to, as I always said, if you're hungry, if you have no food, people will fight. If you have no dignity, people will fight. So if you take care, and like my mother and many other indigenous cultures, we're able to grow our own food and help protect the biodiversity in seeds, in plants, in other spaces, then we will be able to take care of our homes, our villages, our communities, and we will be able to fight. Indigenous people at the heart of solutions of fighting climate and conflict crisis that include us, invest in us to be able to be the change that the world needs to see. Thank you.
Binal, you spoke so well. I think you should have been the one facilitating this event. Much more power than me. Include us, invest in us. I think that should be the concluding point. For sure, that's the highlight recommendation. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and this recommendation with us. It's just excellent. You touched on so many points, also like the previous colleagues from seeds, water, soil, agroecology, nature, excellent, and the dimension of conflicts, of course. We are, of course, a bit short of time, and this was to be expected because of the richness of what you are sharing with us, this wisdom you're sharing with us. With this, let me take you to our fourth speaker. Thank you, Binal. Dorcas, you have a few slides. If you can take 5 minutes, then it will leave us to 10 minutes at the end to come with the one main recommendation, and we'll see one main questions that we can address. Dorcas, if you want to share with us a few of your slides, very quickly, taking benefit from your wisdom also from the Maasai community where you're from. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvie. I'm going to take this really, really quick because of time, but thank you so much for having me. And it's so good to see you all here at this platform today. Thank you for joining in. So, so my name is Dorcas Naishoru, and I'm serving as Miss Climate Kenya, also the first Miss Climate in the world. And I'm also serving as the founder of Isilan community-based organization based in Kenya that works together with survivors of female genital mutilation, that is FGM, early marriage, and gender-based violence to be the change we want to see on issues to do with cultural norms and environment in Kenya. So moving forward, I would say that, all right, thank you very much, Mama. So I would say that the main shocks and stresses that are experienced in my community, I would say, are severe drought, unpredictable rainfall patterns, and extreme heat waves. So having these kind of challenges, they lead up to crop failures, livestock deaths, and also water scarcity. So I would just want to say that in recent years, we've been having sessions or seasons where rainfall fail entirely. And as you can see from that slide, we have a lady who is sad because one of her cows, one of her few cows left, have died because of drought. So those are some of the climate shocks that we experience. And these sudden shocks disrupt the ability to plan and sustain these pastoral communities. So on the stresses and chronic compounding, I would say soil degradation from overuse and erosion leads to issues to do with food insecurity as the yields of the land get to decline. And pastoralists in my community, for instance, must travel further to find pasture, putting pressure on both the people and animals. You can imagine moving for more than 4 kilometers away from home every single day trying to get pasture. So in this case, you get that the stress is even made worse by limited access to resources like seeds, tools, or irrigation items. Why? Because most of these communities are not able to afford. So on this note, I will just point out the key issues in summary. These include prolonged drought, as I have explained and said, and also we have food insecurity and malnutrition. We have human-wildlife conflict, and I would like to say for the last one month now here in Kenya, we happen to live nearby the Nairobi National Park. We are neighbors to the Nairobi National Park. And it is so sad how we get lions leaving the national park and coming to the villages. And they come eating the small, herd of cattle left from the drought, which is very sad. And these are some of the crises that are brought up by issues to do with climate change. So here we also have the exchange of girls for grass. This is a very sad story that is being experienced by daughters of the savannah due to scarcity of pasture for livestock. So you can have a look at that. The link is attached. We'll be able to attach this slide later on. Then you can have access and see what is happening on the ground. So on this note, also we have limited climate adaptation infrastructure, leading up to issues to do with flooding when there's too much rain and things like that. So moving on to the next slide, I would say here we have indigenous basically leading the change. So here is more of what are some of the indigenous innovative solutions that are already leading on that we are doing on community level. One, I would say with Isilan community-based organization I've worked with for the last 5 years, we have had an opportunity to do 100,000 tree seedlings nursery last year here in Kenya. And one beautiful thing about this project is that it is purely done by women. As you can see on those photos, these are the women doing potting. These are the women transplanting the seedlings from the seedbed to the potting bags, which is very beautiful. And you can see down there on the photo below, you can see how the trees have done very well. So this is one of the success stories that we had for last year. And we are hoping to also get to work on it probably mid this year. We've been having a few struggles with our finances, but it's a project that we would really love to venture in. So through this platform or project, we have donated tree seedlings to schools. We have done sensitization to children in schools, and that has been a very innovative climate solution by the women for the community. So on this aspect also, we have the Tabia Nchi program. And Tabia Nchi program is a program that has been set to be able to give everyone an opportunity to access information on which tree seedling to plant on which region or in which region. So how does this work? So basically, this is like Zoom, how we have this platform here. So through this platform, Zoom platform, we have people with expertise come on board. Yeah, we have individuals who have good indigenous knowledge come in and advise us. At this time of the year, you should plant this particular tree. And one spectacular thing about this project, again, I would say, is the fact that we are able to translate trees as per the local or the common names, the village name to the scientific name, in such a way that if you want to buy a tree species or a tree seed, a seedling or a seed, you already have the name of it, which helps us improve the knowledge that people have out here, and also support them in their quest to, creating a better world by tree growing in different parts of Kenya. So to your right, you can see women and youth empowerment in climate resilient livelihoods, where we can see that we are having women being supported through beadwork and eco-friendly entrepreneurship, where we encourage women on regenerative agriculture practices such as agroforestry. And also recently we just tried on apiculture, that is the keeping of beehives for honey. So as you can see, also the beautiful piece that I have won today, these are some of the projects that we embrace or we support for the women to be able to get food for their families, for the women to be able to get something to take their children to school with. On to the next slide. Advocacy and education for climate resilience. These are some of the solutions that we are bringing through the indigenous community. Here you can see photos of children. And here it's more on community sensitization programs where we're educating children on issues to do with the environment, on how we can conserve our environment, how we can be ambassadors of change, how we can lead transformation in our communities in the littlest or smallest way possible. On to the next slide. So this is our school children engagement, where we're working with children closely and just making sure that they are aware of what is really happening in the world, what is continuously affecting our livelihoods and things like that. So next you can see on what does the international community, especially climate conflict and humanitarian and finance actors, need to understand and do to scale up their support for you in your communities? First, I would say that the international community must first understand that we are not just beneficiaries, but we are leaders with solutions that work. It is so sad that during the COP29 in Baku, the financing was reduced, and it made me think more of why would they reduce the amount of financing instead of them seeing as an opportunity for individuals on the local ground to lead up the change on issues affecting our climate. Perhaps they were just seeing as beneficiaries, of the whole issue of climate change, which is very wrong. So they need to understand that we are the leaders with solutions that work. We have tried and they are working. So some of the things that the international community needs to do, one is funding long-term climate solutions. It is important to have funding for this, because many of the times we have so many individuals at the grassroots level. It is so draining financially. As I mentioned earlier, we did 100,000 tree seedlings nursery last year, which was very draining financially. So it is important to have long-term individuals or partners who can come on board and just fund, things like for the Tabia Nchi program. Someone can just come and say, you know what, I'm going to do long-term funding for this project for an entire year. That is a boost, not just for the organization working on this project, but also for individuals who are benefiting on outside of it. So it is also important to recognize and support indigenous leadership, because basically these are indigenous people have indigenous knowledge, and these are the same people who are going to help us know some of the solutions of which problems, they know how life was before these, issues affecting communities came today. So having to embrace and appreciate the expertise and appreciating the knowledge that they have is something very, very important. So also to mention that it is important for the international community to improve access to climate finance for frontline communities, as this enables more implementation and more, I would say, more outcome on projects working towards curbing problems to do with climate change in our communities, therefore improving food security, therefore improving health. Peace also comes in when people have food. So it is also important for every one of us, not just international community, to advocate for policies protecting indigenous land, water, and food systems. We should all understand that we are the voice and we are the change that we want to see, and it is important to amplify our voices in global platforms, international, global, regional, or even in your local area where you come from. You should, you should really look to making your voice amplified to make sure that someone gets help from it. So we are looking at COP30 coming up, and some of the questions that we should be asking ourselves is, what are we going to say there? Is it like a 2 weeks of just negotiations and conversations, then come back home after a very long trip to Brazil, or what? So we should really work on shaping policies and prioritizing on funding, scaling up grassroots projects and implementations. So as I finalize, I just want to say that we are not just victims, we are leaders of change, and let's act together. Let's do it together, and let's make our world a better place. And thank you for all of you and all panelists here. It has been a very engaging session, and yeah, that is all for me today.
Thank you, Dorcas. Thank you very much. And with this very good point, you are taking us to some of the global opportunities from the local action that you're all leading in your communities, in your countries, into your regions, because I think Tarsila and Binal also have a regional focus. How do we take these recommendation forward in these global processes? We have the COP30, which is the climate conference that will take place in Belém in Brazil in November. We also have the UN Food System Summit +4 that will take place in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia in end of July, and there might be other forums. And I think, unfortunately, we are short of time to have, I think it would have been nice to have another half an hour to really consider how do we really unite these voices to be, going at scale and making sure we are heard, that you are heard in these forums, so that your wisdom and your leadership is shaping the actions. And so, as you said, Binal, that you are included in these processes, and that investment is channeled into your action. I think this inclusion, the justice, and the investment with the finance is the fundamental element. So I think we should think about other opportunities to coalesce and to have these voices to really shape the agenda, to be heard. We know that climate change adaptation and resilience is a priority of COP presidency in Brazil. And it's being said that it's a people COP. So it has to be climate action where people actions are at the center, are as a solution. And this is really where hearing from you today, I don't have enough time to paraphrase and repeat the excellent suggestion that you all made, but these are really important, not only for the humanitarian action to listen to women indigenous leader, but listen for the shaping and the implementation of these solutions before, during, and after climate shocks and stresses are taking place and affecting and driving food insecurity. We want to thank you very much, and we really hope to have other opportunities this year to discuss this further and to shape this leading role of indigenous women for addressing the climate crisis together with the food crisis. So we're going to look forward together with Nishani. We will see how to take this forward. But we want to thank you very, very much for your time in preparing for this short 1-hour event. And we want to let you go now because the hour is past. And it's been a pleasure and honor. And we're wishing you well in whatever you continue on leading the way ahead. You can count on us, and together with the Charter on the climate and environment, where we want to add food, we will make sure to take and honor this principle of putting local leaders and indigenous women at the center of the action. With this, we want to thank you very much and look forward to meeting you soon and wishing you well. Good day. Bye-bye.